Commander Vrell stood in the observation deck, all four of his eyes fixed on the viewport, watching the newest recruit stumble through the obstacle course below. She was small, impossibly small. Her two arms looked fragile, her two legs even more so, and her single head bobbed around like it might snap off at any moment. "That," Vrell said slowly, tapping one claw against the reinforced glass, "is supposed to be our secret weapon." Lieutenant Caro, his second-in-command, made a clicking sound that roughly translated to nervous laughter. "High Command seems to think so, sir. The humans, they say, have something we need." Kidder shuffled his 6 legs. "The reports say humans are, well, persistent." "What? A death wish?" Vrell watched as the human designated in the records as recruit Mira Kane failed to jump high enough to reach the first platform. She tried again, failed again. On the third attempt she grabbed onto the edge with her tiny fingers and hauled herself up with what looked like pure stubbornness. "She cannot even jump properly," Vrell muttered. Down below, Mira Kane was now attempting to cross a balance beam designed for Threxian soldiers who had tails for stability. She had no tail. She wobbled, arms spinning in circles, and somehow made it across. Vrell said, despite himself. Persistent. Vrell let out a long breath through his gills. "The Kravor Collective has 17 battle fleets pointed at our outer colonies. The Shrikes have already taken 3 of our mining stations, and High Command, in their infinite wisdom, has decided that what we need is persistent." But then the reports started changing. The humans had arrived at the Galactic Council 3 cycles ago. They were new, untested, and frankly kind of pathetic looking. They had no natural armor, no venomous spines, no acid sacs, not even decent claws. They were soft, squishy, and according to the initial reports, died if you looked at them wrong. Humans, it turned out, were from a death world. Not just dangerous, but actively trying to kill everything on it. All the time. They had survived anyway. Thrived. Even. And now the Galactic Military Council had approved an experimental program. Integrate humans into the Allied forces. Mira Kane was the first volunteer. "Lucky her." "Commander," Caro said carefully, "her scores from the simulation pods are unusual." "Unusual how?" "She has a 98% fatality rate." Vrell turned all 4 eyes on his lieutenant. "That is not a good thing, Caro." Vrell blinked, one eye at a time. "Explain." "No, sir, I mean, yes, sir, what I mean is, she dies 98% of the time in the simulations, but the enemy dies 100% of the time." Caro pulled up a holographic display. Combat simulation data scrolled past. "She does not retreat, sir. Ever. In every scenario, she continues fighting until either she wins or she is physically incapable of moving. In most cases, even when mortally wounded, she eliminates the threat before expiring." "That is insane." "Yes, sir. That is what the psychological evaluation said too. Apparently humans have something they call, and I am translating here, crazy determination." Vrell watched Mira Kane below. She had moved on to the weapons range. A plasma rifle designed for soldiers twice her size was clutched in her small hands. She braced it against her shoulder, took aim and fired. The recoil knocked her backwards. She rolled, came up to one knee, and fired again. Target eliminated. "She is going to get herself killed." Vrell said, "Most likely, sir. And take half the enemy with her." Vrell made a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. "Put her in my squad." "The simulations suggest more than half, sir." 3 weeks later they deployed to the Outer Rim. The Kravor Collective had launched a surprise attack on Station Epsilon 7, a critical supply depot. Vrella's squad was part of the Rapid Response Team. 12 Threxian soldiers, 4 Kresh heavy weapons specialists, 2 Yena scouts and 1 human. Mira looked up. Her face, so strange with just 2 eyes and that bizarre, flexible mouth, curved into what the cultural database said was a smile. "Do not worry, big guy. I will make sure you lose that bet." "Hey, human," called out Drex, one of the Kresh. The species was known for being, well, jerks. "Try not to die in the first 5 minutes. Yeah? I have a bet running." Mira Kane sat in the transport ship, checking her equipment with methodical precision. She was the only one not talking, not joking, not trying to calm pre-battle nerves. She just existed, in a bubble of terrifying focus. The other soldiers laughed. Even Vrell felt his tension ease slightly. Maybe she would be fine. Maybe this would not be a complete disaster. The transport shuddered as they entered the station's docking bay. Alarms blared. The Kravor had breached the intersections. Civilian and military personnel were pinned down in the command center. "Move out," Vrell ordered. "Standard formation. Scouts forward, heavy weapons midline. Infantry support. Kane, you stay in the middle with me." "Copy that, Commander," Mira said. Her voice was steady. Too steady. They moved through the corridor fast and low. The Yenna scouts reported back through comms. Kravor warriors ahead, at least 20. Heavily armed. Not good odds. "We need to punch through to the command center," Vrell analyzed. "Taro, take Squad 2 and flank left. We will draw their fire. You hit them from the side." "Understood, sir." They rounded the corner. Plasma fire erupted immediately. Vrella's shields flared as he ducked behind a support column. His soldiers returned fire, but the Kravor had a defensive position. This was going to be a grind. Then Mira Kane did something no one expected. She ran forward. Not toward cover. Forward. Toward the enemy. "Kane, what are you doing?" Vrell shouted. Her rifle came up point-blank range. She fired 3 times. 3 Kravor dropped. She rolled under a swing from a 4th, came up inside his guard, jammed her rifle under his chin, fired, switched to her sidearm, shot another in the eye socket, grabbed a plasma grenade from her belt, armed it, threw it into the cluster of enemies behind her, and dove behind their own barricade. She did not answer. She was too busy sprinting in a zigzag pattern that made her nearly impossible to hit. Plasma bolts sizzled past her. One grazed her shoulder, burning through her armor. She did not slow down. She hit the Kravor line like a meteor. The explosion was deafening. When the smoke cleared, Mira was already up, firing, moving, firing again. Half the Kravor force was down. The rest were panicking, trying to reorient. "All units, push forward," Vrell ordered, shaking off his shock. His squad surged ahead. The Kravor, caught between Mira's insane assault and the main force, broke and ran. Garo's flanking team cut them down from the side. Vrell ran to where Mira stood, breathing hard, bleeding from at least 3 wounds, covered in gore that was not her own. What was that?" In under 2 minutes, the corridor was secure. She looked at him with those strange 2 eyes, and that flexible mouth curved again. "That was me staying in the middle with you, Commander." "Technically, I was in the middle of the enemy formation." Rex let out a booming laugh. "I love this human." Vrell wanted to be angry. He wanted to discipline her for breaking formation, for taking insane risks, for nearly getting herself killed. But they had just won an impossible fight with 0 friendly casualties, and she was looking at him like she had simply done her job. "You are insane," he finally said. "I prefer the term tactically creative," Mira replied, reloading her weapon. "Are we moving to the command center, or are we going to stand around discussing my mental health?" They moved to the command center. It was worse than expected. Kravor shock troops had breached the inner defenses. The command staff was pinned in a bunker with maybe 20 minutes of air left. The enemy had set up a heavy repeating plasma cannon at the main entrance. Anyone who tried to approach would be shredded. "The civilians do not have 30 minutes, Vrell said. He turned to Mira. "Kane, tell me you do not have another insane idea." "We cannot get past that cannon," Caro reported. "We would need armor support, which is at least 30 minutes out." She was studying the layout on her tactical display. "I do have an idea, but you are really not going to like it. See that ventilation shaft?" She pointed to a narrow opening about 15 meters up the wall. "That runs directly over the cannon position. If someone could get up there, drop down behind them, cause enough chaos, the cannon crew would be distracted long enough for the rest of you to rush the position." "I already do not like it." "That someone being you," Vrell said flatly. "I am the smallest. I am the only one who would fit in that shaft. You would be trapped behind enemy lines with no support." "Would not be the first time." She said it so casually, like being trapped behind enemy lines was a normal Tuesday for her. "Commander, with respect, I did not sign up for the easy jobs." She checked her ammunition. "Besides, I have a grenade launcher attachment. It will be fun." "Kane, this is suicide." "Fun." Vrell wanted to argue more, but the civilians in that bunker were running out of time. "Fine. But if you die, I am putting that in your permanent record." "Fair enough." Mira grinned, a predatory expression that made Vrell's scales itch. Give me 2 minutes to get in position, then light them up. When you see the fireworks, rush the cannon." She moved before he could reconsider. Using a grappling device, she scaled the wall, pried open the ventilation shaft, and disappeared inside. Vrell counted down in his head. This was the worst command decision he had ever made. High Command was going to have his gills for this. 2 minutes passed. He raised his rifle. "On my mark, suppressing fire on the cannon position. 3, 2, 1. Then the ceiling exploded. His squad opened fire. The Kravor cannon swiveled, returning fire with devastating accuracy. Vrell's shields were taking a beating, and they had barely made any progress. The cannon detonated in a brilliant flash. Mira Kane dropped through the ventilation shaft like an avenging spirit, landed directly on top of a Kravor soldier, used his body to cushion her fall, rolled to her feet, and immediately started shooting. Her grenade launcher coughed, sending explosive rounds into the cannon's power core. The Kravor soldiers spun around, trying to figure out what had just happened. Mira was already moving, a whirlwind of violence and precision. She shot one through the throat, kicked another in what passed for knees on a Kravor, breaking them backwards, turned and emptied her magazine into a third. "Now! Go, go, go!" Vrell charged forward with his squad. They hit the disorganized Kravor from the front while Mira tore through them from behind. It was not a fight. It was a massacre. The Kravor, some of the most feared warriors in the galaxy, were being dismantled by a coordinated assault led by a human who apparently did not understand the concept of self-preservation. When the last enemy fell, Mira stood in the middle of the carnage, reloading again, barely even winded. "Bunker is clear, Commander. You might want to get those civilians out before they run out of air." Vrell stared at her. "How are you still alive?" They extracted the civilians. Station Epsilon 7 was secured. The entire operation, which Command had estimated would take 12 hours and result in heavy casualties, had been completed in under 3 hours with only minor injuries to Vrell's squad. "Spite, mostly," she said cheerfully, "and really good reflexes." Back on the transport ship, Drex clapped a massive hand on Mira's shoulder, nearly knocking her over. "Human, you fight like you have nothing to lose?" Mira Kane had personally killed 47 enemy combatants. Mira smiled that strange human smile. "That is because I do not fight like I have nothing to lose. I fight like I have everything to protect." Vrell watched her from across the ship. She was cleaning her weapons, tending to her wounds, acting like she had not just rewritten the tactical manual on close-quarters combat. The other soldiers were gathering around her, asking questions, sharing rations, treating her like one of them. She had earned it. "Commander," Carol approached quietly, "High Command wants a full report. Tell them the human exceeded expectations." "That is an understatement, sir." "Yes." Vrell turned away from the viewport. "Yes, it is." 3 days later they were deployed again. And again. And again. Each mission. Mira Kane was there doing impossible things, surviving impossible odds, and somehow making everyone around her better. Word spread through the military. The human in Commander Vrell's squad, the one who did not know when to quit, the one who turned certain defeat into improbable victory. Other units started requesting human transfers. High Command approved more recruitment from Earth. The program expanded. She was also, as the enemy would soon learn, the worst thing that had ever happened to them, but Mira Kane was the first. 6 weeks into her deployment, the Shrikes launched a massive offensive. The spider-like species had been harassing the Allied forces for years, but this was different. This was an all-out assault on the Vergun system, a strategic choke point that controlled access to 3 major trade routes. If the Shrikes took Vergun, the entire sector would collapse. Vrell's squad was part of the defensive force. They deployed to Vergun 3, a rocky moon where the Shrikes had landed ground forces. The briefing was grim. The enemy had numerical superiority, better positions, and orbital support. Command estimated a 30% chance of holding the line. "Those are terrible odds," Drex observed. "Understood, sir," they shouted in unison. "Those are the only odds we have," Vrell replied. He looked at his squad, these soldiers who had become more than just units under his command. They were a team, a family, almost. "We hold here, whatever comes through that canyon does not get past us." "Understood," except Mira. She was staring at the tactical display with that focused intensity she got before battles. "Commander, permission to speak freely. These odds are only terrible if we fight defensively. The Shrikes expect us to dig in and hold. What if we do not?" "Granted. What are you suggesting?" Vrell felt a cold sense of dread. "Kane, please tell me you are not suggesting what I think you are suggesting." She pointed to the map. "Their command ship is in low orbit, coordinating the ground assault. If something happened to that ship, their ground forces would lose cohesion. They would be vulnerable." Her smile was terrifying. "I am absolutely suggesting what you think I am suggesting. You want to hijack a Shrike orbital craft, fly it up to their command ship, and somehow sabotage it? That is your plan. When you say it like that, it sounds crazy." "It is crazy. But is it crazy enough to work?" Kravor made a strangled sound. "She has a point, sir. The Shrikes would never expect an attack from below. Their orbital defenses are focused outward, not inward." Vrell looked at his lieutenant. "You are encouraging this?" "I am saying, sir, that if anyone could pull off something that insane, it would be Mira Kane." Mira nodded enthusiastically. "I will need a small team. Fast. Expendable. Good at improvisation." "Expendable?" Vrell repeated. "I meant that in the nicest way possible." "I will do my best not to die then, sir." Against his better judgment, against all military doctrine, against every survival instinct he had, Vrell said, "Fine. Take Drex and 2 Yenna scouts. If you die, I am going to be very upset with you." They moved out under cover of darkness. The Shrike landing craft was poorly guarded. Apparently the spider-like warriors were so confident in their invasion that they had not bothered with proper security. That overconfidence was about to cost them everything. Mira and her team slipped past the perimeter, neutralized the guards with silent precision, and boarded the craft. She spent 10 minutes figuring out the controls, another 5 minutes arguing with the navigation system in broken Shrike language, and then they were airborne. Vrell watched from the ground position as the stolen craft wobbled into the sky like a drunk bird. "This is going to be a disaster." Vrell waited. His squad waited. The entire defensive line waited. The craft stabilized, accelerated, and shot toward the command ship in orbit. Then, high above them, the Shrike command ship exploded. "What did she do?" Vrell breathed. Not a small explosion. Not a tactical strike. The entire ship detonated in a brilliant fireball that lit up the night sky. His comm crackled. "Command, this is Kane. Package delivered. The reactor was shielded better than expected, so I had to get creative, heading back down now. Might want to duck." A Shrike escape pod screamed through the atmosphere, trailing fire and smoke, completely out of control. It crashed into the canyon 300 meters from their position, bounced twice, skidded to a halt. The hatch blew open. Mira Kane crawled out, singed and smoking, but alive. She gave a thumbs-up gesture. "We are good. Duck?" "Kane, what do you mean? Wait, is that a drop pod?" But Vrell's defensive line did not even have to fire a shot. The battle for Vergon 3 was over before it really began. On cue, the Shrike ground forces descended into chaos. Without their command ship, their coordination collapsed. They started retreating, fighting each other, running in random directions. Mira limped back to the command post. Drex and the 2 Yenna scouts followed, looking shell-shocked but unharmed. "Well," Mira said, "we boarded the ship. I set charges on the reactor containment. We fought our way to the escape pods, launched just as the charges went off, and rode the explosion down like a very violent elevator. It was actually kind of fun." "Report," Vrell demanded. "Fun. Terrifying fun, but still fun." Vrell sat down heavily on a supply crate. "You destroyed an entire command ship with a 4-person team. 5-person team if you count the Shrike engineer I convinced to help me. He was very cooperative once I explained that the reactor was going to explode whether he helped or not. You have 4 hearts, Commander. You can spare 1. You are going to give me a heart attack." Despite himself, despite the insanity, despite everything, Vrell laughed. It started as a small chuckle and grew into full-bellied laughter. His squad joined in. Even the other units in the defensive line, who had just witnessed the most improbable victory in recent military history, were laughing. And she was only getting started. Mira Kane, the first human in the Galactic Military, had just changed the course of the war. The High Command was not amused. "You let her do what?" "General Thoros, The supreme military commander of the Allied forces stared at Vrell through the holocom with all three of his eyes narrowed in what could only be described as barely controlled fury. "I let her tactically neutralize a strategic asset, sir," Vrell replied, keeping his voice level. "The results speak for themselves. The results are that we now have 17 Shrike battle groups retreating from the Vergun system.
Yes.
But we also have every military protocol manual on fire, metaphorically speaking, because one human decided that chain of command was optional. Sir, with respect, we won. You won by accident." From somewhere off-screen, another voice chimed in. "Actually, General, the statistical analysis suggests Recruit Kane's actions were calculated with remarkable precision. The probability of success was approximately 43%, which is significantly higher than our original defensive strategy." 43%, General Thoris sputtered. "That is barely better than flipping a coin." "A coin does not destroy command ships, sir," the analyst continued helpfully. Vrell could hear the general's teeth grinding through the comm. "Where is Recruit Kane now?" "Medical bay, sir. Minor burns. 3 broken ribs, a concussion, and she somehow dislocated her shoulder during the escape pod descent. The medics say she will be cleared for duty in 48 hours. 48 hours? The general made a sound like air escaping from a punctured hull. "Tell me, Commander Vrell, how do you control this human?" Vrell thought about that question. "How did you control a force of nature? How did you contain lightning?" "Sir, I do not control her, I aim her." There was a long pause. Then, surprisingly, General Thoris laughed. It was a tired, slightly hysterical laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. "Aim her. Fine. Then aim her at the Kravor Collective. They just launched a major offensive in the Talus sector. If your human is so good at impossible victories, let us see how she handles impossible odds." The comm went dark. Kravor, who had been standing quietly in the corner, finally spoke. "The Talus sector is a death trap, sir. The Kravor have fortified every approach. Our last 3 assault groups were wiped out before they even reached the planet." "I know," Vrell said quietly, "but orders are orders." In the medical bay, Mira was arguing with the doctor, a soft-spoken Velen who specialized in trauma care. "Define invincible," Mira said, trying to sit up and immediately regretting it as pain shot through her ribs. "Okay, fine. Maybe I am a little bit vincible right now." "You need rest," Dr. Pell insisted, his tentacles waving in agitation. "Your body has sustained significant damage. Humans may heal faster than most species, but you are not invincible." "A little bit?" Pell pulled up her scan results. "You have microfractures in both legs. Your left lung was partially collapsed, and your brain is showing signs of impact trauma. By all medical logic, you should be unconscious. That is not tolerance. That is concerning." Pell folded several tentacles in what Vrell had learned was a gesture of frustration. "What drives you humans to ignore your own survival instincts?" Mira was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice had lost its usual humor. "Back home we have a saying. The only easy day was yesterday. Every day you wake up and you choose to keep going. You choose to fight. You choose to protect the people who cannot protect themselves. It is not about ignoring survival instincts, Doc. It is about having something worth surviving for. I have a high pain tolerance." Pell's tentacles stilled. "You fight for others. Always. Even though it will probably kill you." Vrell, who had been standing in the doorway listening, cleared his throat. "Philosophically inspiring as that is, Kane, we have a new assignment." Mira smiled that strange human smile. "Especially because of that, if I am going to go out, I want it to mean something." She perked up immediately, then winced as her ribs reminded her they were broken. "Where to?" "Talus sector." The smile vanished. Even Mira Kane knew that name. "The Grinder." "The Grinder." Vrell confirmed. "The Kravor have 3 full battle groups fortified on Talus Prime. They are using it as a staging ground for deeper incursions into Allied space. High Command wants it taken. And unofficially, High Command wants us to die gloriously, you mean?" Mira said. "What is the actual plan?" Vrell pulled up a tactical display. "Officially, we are part of a coordinated assault. 6 divisions, simultaneous strikes on multiple positions, overwhelming force." Mira studied the map. "You need someone crazy enough to volunteer for the strike team. Unofficially, High Command knows most of those divisions will be slaughtered. But while the Kravor are focused on the main assault, a small strike team will infiltrate the planetary defense network and disable it from the inside. Once the shields are down, orbital bombardment can target their command structure. I need a whole team of crazy. And before you ask, yes, you are leading it. 72 hours, which gives you time to heal. Vrell looked at Dr. Pell. She has 72 hours. When do we leave? Pell's tentacles drooped in defeat. At the rate humans heal, she will be combat ready in 60 hours, but I am formally protesting this decision. Yes, sir. For once she did not argue. 3 days later they assembled in the briefing room. Vrell had handpicked the strike team. Drex, obviously. The big Kresh had become Mira's unofficial partner in mayhem. 2 Yena scouts, Shrikes and Tora, who were small enough to move through tight spaces and fast enough to keep up with Mira's insane pace. Kravor because Vrell needed someone he trusted completely, and Vrell himself because he was not about to send his people into that nightmare without being there himself. Protest noted and filed. Vrell said, Kane, get some rest. That is an order. Right, Mira began, standing at the front of the room with her arms still in a sling but her eyes sharp. Let us talk about how we are going to infiltrate the most heavily defended planet in this sector and not die horribly. Inspiring start. Drex rumbled. I saved the inspiring speeches for after we survive. She activated the holographic display. The Kravor Defense Network has 6 shield generators positioned around the planet. Each one is redundant, meaning we need to take out all 6 simultaneously, or the system will compensate. We cannot do that. Then what can we do? Shrikes asked. We cheat. Mira zoomed in on the planetary map. The generators pull massive amounts of power from a central fusion reactor located here underground beneath their main military base. If we can overload that reactor, the entire defense grid goes dark. That reactor is beneath their main military base, Karo pointed out, which means we have to fight through approximately 10,000 Kravor soldiers to reach it. Not fight through them, Mira corrected. Fight past them. We do not need to win, we just need to survive long enough to reach the reactor and set the charges. Approximately 20 minutes once we are detected. Vrell felt that familiar sense of dread. Define survive long enough. I never said it was a good plan, Commander. I said it was a plan. 20 minutes of fighting 10,000 enemies. Tora, the quieter of the 2 Yena scouts, spoke up. What is our extraction strategy? Mira was quiet for just a moment too long. The reactor overload will trigger a chain reaction, Mira admitted. We will have approximately 90 seconds to reach minimum safe distance. After that, the blast will level everything within a 5-kilometer radius. There is no extraction strategy. Is there? Tora said softly. It is a very dangerous mission with a low probability of survival, Mira corrected. Which is different from suicide, because suicide implies we are not trying to live. I intend to try very hard to live. The room was silent. So this is a suicide mission, Drex said. He did not sound angry. He sounded almost curious. But you do not think we will make it out, Karo said. Mira met his eyes. I think we have a 32% chance of successful extraction. I also think that if we do not do this, the Kravor will use Talus Prime to launch attacks that will kill millions of civilians. So yes, the odds are bad. They are always bad. But someone has to go, and I would rather it be us than people who have families waiting for them. I have a family, Drex said quietly. I know. Mira's voice was gentle, which is why I'm not ordering anyone to come with me. This is volunteer only. If you want out, no one will judge you. Drex stood up. All 2.5 meters of him. I am in. Shrikes and Tora exchanged a look, then nodded together. We are in. Karo simply activated his weapon systems. Someone has to keep you from doing something stupid, Kane. They all looked at Vrell. The commander felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders like a physical thing. He could order them to stand down. He could find another way. He could, but he would not. Because, Mira was right, someone had to go. And if his squad was going into that hell, he was going with them. I am in, Vrell said. But for the record, I hate everything about this plan. Noted, Mira said with a slight smile. Departure is in 6 hours. Get your affairs in order. Write letters if you need to. Make peace with whatever gods you believe in. And get some sleep, because once we start, we do not stop until it is done. The assault on Talus Prime began exactly on schedule. 6 divisions hit the planet from orbit, landing at strategic positions around the main base. The Kravor, as expected, responded with overwhelming force. The battle was brutal. Vrell watched the casualty reports coming in and felt sick. So many soldiers dying to create a distraction, while the Kravor focused on the main assault. A single small transport ship dropped through the atmosphere on the opposite side of the planet. No weapons, minimal shields, designed to look like a supply runner. It crashed, deliberately, into a canyon 3 kilometers from the base, but the distraction worked. The strike team emerged from the wreckage and started moving. They covered the first kilometer in silence, using every bit of cover available. The second kilometer was harder. Kravor patrols were everywhere. They had to eliminate 3 guard posts without raising an alarm. The third kilometer was when things went wrong. A patrol spotted them. Torre took out the first soldier with a silent shot, but the second managed to trigger an alert before Shrikes could reach him. Kravor soldiers poured out of the base like angry insects. Plasma fire lit up the night. Vrell's shields took hits and he returned fire, covering Mira and the scouts as they sprinted toward the base entrance. They ran. "Well," Mira said as alarms began blaring across the base. "There goes our element of surprise. Time to run." "Charges on the door," Mira shouted. They pushed through into chaos. Drex slapped a breaching charge on the reinforced entrance, and they all took cover. The explosion was deafening. The door crumpled inward. "Reactor access is 3 levels down," Kravor reported, checking his tactical display while running. "We need to reach the central lift shaft." On it, Mira led them through a side corridor, shot out a lock, and they burst into a cargo bay. The lift shaft was on the far side, guarded by at least 20 soldiers. The base interior was a maze of corridors and checkpoints. Kravor's soldiers were scrambling to defensive positions. The strike team moved like a surgical knife through the confusion, cutting down anyone in their path but not stopping to engage. "Grenades," Mira called out. They threw in unison. The explosions cleared a path. They sprinted across the cargo bay, plasma bolts chasing them, reached the lift and piled inside. "Going down." Mira hit the controls. The lift descended. Kravor's soldiers on the upper levels were shooting down the shaft. Vrell returned fire, his rifle overheating from sustained use. They reached the reactor level. The doors opened to reveal a nightmare. Hundreds of Kravor soldiers in a massive underground chamber. The reactor itself was a towering structure of pulsing energy at the center. "Okay," Mira said, breathing hard. "This is the part where we earn our pay." "We do not get paid at all," Torre pointed out. "Exactly my point. We do not get paid enough for this," Shrikes muttered. Vrell looked at his team. "This insane, brave, stupid, wonderful team. It has been an honor serving with you." They nodded. "Save the sentiment for when we are drinking to our victory," Mira said. "Because we are getting out of this. All of us." "Understood." They charged. "Then let us go ruin the Kravor's whole day." What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for years to come. 6 soldiers against hundreds. By every tactical calculation, it should have been a massacre. The strike team should have been wiped out in seconds. Mira Kane led from the front, a whirlwind of controlled violence. She used the environment like a weapon, collapsing support beams to create barriers, shooting fuel lines to create explosions, turning the Kravor's own base against them. But they were not. Drex was an unstoppable juggernaut, his heavy armor absorbing hits that would have killed anyone else, his massive rifle cutting down enemies in wide arcs. Shrikes and Torre moved like ghosts, appearing behind enemy lines, eliminating targets with surgical precision, then vanishing before anyone could respond. Kravor coordinated it all, calling out targets, watching for flanking maneuvers, keeping the team cohesive even in the chaos. And Vrell fought like he had never fought before. For his team. For the millions of lives depending on them. For the crazy human who had taught him that impossible was just another word for not yet accomplished. They reached the reactor. "You have 2!" Vrell shouted back, shooting a Kravor officer who had gotten too close. Mira pulled the demolition charges from her pack. "Cover me. I need 3 minutes." Mira worked with focused intensity, placing charges on the reactor's cooling systems, the power regulators, the containment field generators. Every point was carefully chosen to maximize the cascade failure. 60 seconds. Kara warned. Almost done.